you're sitting at a table or somewhere where your parents don't mind a little bit of a mess, or just have paper towels near you to help clean up at the end.
Just real quick, in case you missed it, you also will need baking soda. That wasn't on the original list, but I did go back and add it. So if you didn't grab that from the original list, make sure you have it.
Yes, baking soda as well.
Does it work in a pan?
Does it work in a pan? Sure, that works. I have a pan in front of me too to help clean up when I'm all done. So that's fine.
Yeah.
Veronica has a question. She's got her hand raised.
Well, my mom actually has a question about supplies. I couldn't see the list of supplies attached to.
Oh no.
Where is the list of supplies?
So what are we gonna need? Because I wasn't listening. Because I was trying to tell my dad where I could sit. He told me to go outside.
All right, give me just a second. I'll pull up the list of supplies.
Yes.
You want to put it in the chat box?
Yeah, if it'll let me. Let's see.
Or you could say it out loud. I'm sorry. Yeah.
No, you're good. I've just got to pull it from another place, and we'll see if it'll post. There we go.
Pop up.
Perfect. So when we're building the base of the volcano, that part, you can use different supplies depending on what you have. So if you have like Play-Doh, you can use that for the base. If you have clay, that works. I'm going to be making the base using lots of flour and oil and salt. But if you don't have those materials or you don't want to use a lot of flour, then you could just use Play-Doh or clay or putty or something like that to build the base.
I just joined. What do you need?
All the materials are being typed in the chat if you're able to see it there.
Should be coming through, so you should see them now.
Yep. And for those of you who just joined, I was also saying that if you don't have like lots of flour and salt and oil, which is what I'm going to be using to build the base of the volcano, then you could also use Play-Doh or clay or putty, something that you can use to kind of mold and shape around like the bottle or the part of the volcano that's going to be like exploding.
JC already has a volcano that he made, so.
Oh, nice. Did you make that in school or from a science kit?
That's cool looking, JC.
It was something that I don't remember when I got it, but I got like that it's a volcano, so I decided to use it so we don't have to use anything else.
Okay, cool. Nice. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started with building the base of our volcano. So if you're following along with me, then the materials that you need for the base is flour, salt, oil, and water. If you don't have those materials, don't worry. You can use Play-Doh or clay or putty or something like that. So I'm going to shift my camera down that you guys can see. So I'm going to be building the base in this bowl. That way I can minimize the mess. So the first step involves the flour. Here we go. And if you're following along, I'm using 6 cups of flour. And I have my flour beside me. I'm not sure if you can see it. And I'm just scooping out flour. 1. 2. 3. 4. 3. It's like 3.
We don't have red coloring, do
Yeah, we have there.
we? Okay.
Perfect. If you don't have red food coloring, then you can use orange or yellow. Think, what color do you think of when you think of like lava and volcanoes? Or if you want, you can use a different color, whatever color you like. And this is my last cup of flour right now. Here we go. So while I'm building my base for the volcano out of flour, if you're using a different material like Play-Doh, then you can take your jar and start to shape the Play-Doh around the jar to build like a triangular volcano shape. Or you could follow along with me if you're using flour. So I have 6 cups of flour in my bowl. Next, I'm going to add my salt. There's 1 cup of salt. And I'm using 2 cups of salt total. So this is my 2nd cup of salt. Oops. I'm just tapping the salt
Can
container.
we put a different color because we ran out of red?
Sure, you can use whatever color you have. That's totally fine.
Okay.
All right, so here's my salt. So now I have my flour and salt in the bowl. And then lastly, I'm going to add, the water. So this is 2 cups, a little bit over 2 cups of water. And then I'm going to add a 3rd cup of water. So I'm just going to measure out 1 more cup of water into my measuring cup. Here we go. So I have 3 total cups of water. Perfect. And I'm just going to use my hand or a spoon to mix it up. And we're trying to form like a dough. So I'm using a spoon right now to mix the flour, the water, and the salt. And this dough is going to be the base of our volcano. So it's starting to stick together, just like if you make waffles or something else, how you stir it up with flour. This is fairly similar.
Are you supposed to put water in the flour?
Yes, I added 3 cups of water.
3. What else is supposed to be in the flour?
So I have 6 cups of flour. I have 2 cups of salt, and I have 3 cups of water in my bowl. And it's just becoming like a dough. Okay, this looks good. And I think mine is a little bit watery, so I'm going to add 1 more cup of flour. Let's see, here's my flour. So I'm measuring out 1 more cup of flour, and then I'm going to add that. Perfect. So here is 1 more cup of flour. And I'm going to stir that in. And again, if you're not doing the flour method for your base, then what you can be doing right now as I'm making my base is using your clay or your Play-Doh to build your base around your jar or your container. You can shape your volcano. Perfect. So now here's my base. Here's my dough. This looks good. Now I'm gonna move this bowl out of the camera. That way I can start working on the next part of our volcano. Can everyone, let's see. Can everyone give me a thumbs up or a thumbs up emoji to let me know that they finished working on their base? Or if you're still working, that's totally okay. Okay, let's give everybody maybe 2 more minutes to finish up on their base, and then we'll move on to the next part. Does anyone have any questions so far? Questions, comments? Nope. Okay, looks good. Awesome. So while you guys are finishing up with your base, I'm just going to go over the materials needed for the next part of our building our volcano. So, my camera down. You can either use a jar or like an old soda bottle. I'm using a jar just because that's what I had at my house. This is where the chemical reaction that causes the explosion in our volcano is going to take place, is inside of our jar. I also, of course, have baking soda, which is super important in the reaction. I also have white vinegar, some liquid dish soap, and then I also have my food coloring and a little bit more water as well. I'm gonna move my camera down all the way. Here we go. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is use my vinegar. Awesome, I see thumbs up for most people. So I'm gonna assume that we're ready for the second part. So I'm opening up my vinegar. And I'm going to measure, oh, excuse me? Did someone have a question?
Malcolm did.
Okay, what's up, Malcolm? What's your question?
Your volume went out on us, Malcolm. Can you say that again?
What vinegar do you use for the project?
You said how do you finish the project?
Type it in the chat for us. For some reason, your volume keeps going out on us. Is that bottle good? Is that your question?
We can't hear you, Malcolm. So can you write it in the chat box?
Well, while Malcolm is writing in his question, we can go ahead and start our next step. So again, here's my jar. If you have a soda bottle or a jar, that works too. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to measure out 1 3/4 cup of my vinegar. Oh, 1 3/4 cups of vinegar.
How much?
1 3/4 cups.
I use this much. 1/3, but that's too much. So I use this. That's this one.
Prisha, that's not enough. It's 1 cup. That's not enough, sweetie. You need 1 cup and 3/4. So do you see? 1 and 3/4. 1 and 3/4.
That takes up the whole thing. We don't have
So
that
my
much.
container is almost filled up to the top.
We finished the whole bottle.
Oh, well, that's okay. Well, that's all right. You can just use the vinegar that you have in there, and we'll see what happens.
Do we pour it in the jar?
Yes, once you've measured out 1 3/4 cups of vinegar, you can pour it into your jar. And can everyone give me a thumbs up once they've measured and poured their vinegar? Let's see. All right, looks like for the most part, everyone has their vinegar. So the next step, we're going to be using our dish soap. And you're just gonna, you're just gonna squirt 3 squirts of dish soap. So it's not a lot, just 1 squeeze of the bottle, 2, 3. So all I did was squeeze my dish soap bottle 3 times, or 3 squirts of dish soap into my jar. So in my jar, I have 1 cup and 3/4 cups of vinegar, and I have 3 squirts of dish soap. So once you have done that step, the next thing we're going to do is use our food coloring. So whatever colors you have, I'm going to be using red and yellow. I'm just going to put a couple drops of red and a couple drops of my yellow food coloring, or whatever colors you have. Totally up to you. If you have a spoon and you want to stir or mix it up, you can. If not, that's totally okay. The colors kind of mix them with the water, or mix them with the vinegar themselves. So I'll give everyone a moment to do that. I'm going to clean up a little spill that I have. Oh, wait. There we go. For this activity, it's super handy to have a towel or some napkins nearby because the volcano can be pretty explosive, so keep that in mind. Okay, so it looks like for the most part, and if anyone has a question or you're not done with that step, please either unmute yourself or raise your hand, but it looks like everyone has their vinegar and they have their dish soap and they have their food coloring all in a jar. So now what I'm going to do, for those of you who followed along with using flour for the base, I'm going to take the flour and I'm going to shape it around the jar to build the base. So you can use your hands. If you don't want to get messy, I guess you can use like a spoon or something. I'm going to be using my hands for this part, but totally up to you. The nice thing about the flour base is that it starts to harden over time. So if you were to like put this in your freezer or just let it sit out overnight, the base would start to harden, and then you could do this activity again and your base would would remain. So I'm just pouring the flour near the jar and then I'll shape it. So pouring the flour. Here we go. Good thing I have my towel to wipe off my hands a little bit. And now I'm just going to use my hands to shape the flour dough near the volcano, or near the jar. My dough is really sticky and a little bit wet. I'm not sure if yours is like mine. But once it dries, it'll dry sort of in place. If your dough isn't like staying up or staying near the jar, then you can use something as like a prop to help it stay up. So my dough is very wet. It doesn't really want to stay in place. Did anyone try to make their base using Play-Doh or putty? And can we see what that looks like? I know not everyone may have had flour. Let's see, does anyone use anything besides flour? Ooh, very sticky fingers. Just gonna wipe my hands on this towel. That way I can see everyone. So right now I can't touch my screen, so I can't see if anyone has their hand raised.
Nicole, yours looks great.
Let's see. Oh, awesome. Declan, what did you
I
use?
like yours too.
Oh, is that Play-Doh or is it clay? Well, it looks super awesome, whatever you used.
It's clay.
It's clay? Ah, that makes sense, yeah. Okay. So obviously the dough is a lot more watery than I anticipated for it to be, but that's okay. Sometimes in science, you don't exactly know how it's going to turn out, but you can always learn from your mistakes and how things turned out. So this dough is more watery, and so it's not really sticking near the jar. So I don't know, what are some things you guys think in the future we could do to make the dough less watery? Any ideas? How can we improve in the future? You can just raise your hand if you have an idea.
Add less water.
Add less water? That's a good one, yeah. Less water, maybe more flour.
Veronica, what did you make your volcano out of? That looks great.
Oh, I didn't use as much water, but we did the same thing, but we were.
You use less water. That looks great. So you did the flour and salt?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Use less water.
How much water did you use? Maybe just 1 cup or?
About 3 or 2.
3 or 2 cups? Okay.
No, it was actually 1.5.
I'm sorry.
Gotcha, that makes sense.
No.
Oh no, that's fine. Good to know for next time though. Only 1 or 1.5 cups of water. Okay, so now we're gonna move on to the next step, which is the explosion step, my favorite step of our volcano. So, okay, so now we're going to be using our baking soda. Here's mine. And I'm gonna be using 3 tablespoons of baking soda. So I want you to know that almost as soon as you add in the baking soda, you're gonna see bubbles and it's gonna start to fizz out. So make sure that you're ready for it to see the fizz. So make sure that you're not too close because you don't want to accidentally like get on you. Make sure that you have a nice space that you're okay with getting a little bit of vinegar and water mix on it. So I'm going to measure out 3 tablespoons of baking soda and then I'm gonna move back in my chair and watch what happens. One, And I think what I might do so that all of the baking soda goes into the jar at the same time. There we go. I'm gonna put all 3 tablespoons into 1 cup and then pour that 1 cup of 3 tablespoons into my volcano. That way the explosion all happens at the same time. That way it's not like you add 1 cup, then you add another tablespoon. So 2 tablespoons baking soda.
You might also pour it into a piece of paper and put it in like that with the paper, because I think your cup might be wet, so it might stick.
That's a good idea, yeah. So I'm gonna pour in my 3 tablespoons of baking soda. Here we go. And can you guys see my exploding volcano?
Yes, so fun.
Yay, so now it's exploding. I think I probably could have added in a little bit more food coloring because it's almost pink, or like a light pink color. But there it is. So let's see, I'm gonna watch you guys add in your baking soda and your reactions, your chemical reaction, volcano. Mine is completely foaming over. This is why it's good to have a pan. That way it's all kind of contained. For the most part, at least.
Wow. I see Declan's and
Oh, awesome. Yeah,
oh, look
that
at
was
Ryan's.
pretty cool.
Yeah.
Look at mine.
Oh, cool.
Wow, these are all pretty awesome. Look at those.
I see JC and Lena's.
Do you just put the baking soda and that's all to make it explode?
Yes, I just added the baking soda into the jar, and the jar already had vinegar, dish soap, and food coloring in it.
Okay.
Looks great, everyone.
So my explosion is starting to slow down a little bit, but obviously there has to be some science behind why adding baking soda to vinegar makes this super cool reaction, and there definitely is. So believe it or not, in our baking soda volcano, there were 2 chemical reactions that happened, not just 1, but 2. The first chemical reaction was an acid-base reaction. So vinegar is an acid, and baking soda is a base. So when vinegar and baking soda mixed together, they formed a new chemical called carbonic acid. And basically, the chemical reaction between the baking soda and the liquid created a new gas and a new liquid. So the liquid is what we see in the jar. This kind of, at least for me, it's this kind of pink, like foamy liquid in here. The gas is all of the, you can kind of see it in the air, and it's the foam that that was the like explosion part. So the liquid in the jar is the new liquid that was created by the reaction, and then the foam part is the new gas that was created by our reaction. So that's the first reaction. That's an acid and a base reaction from the vinegar and the baking soda. Then there was a second reaction, and this reaction is called a decomposition reaction. So like I said before, in this reaction, we made carbonic acid, and the carbonic acid, it breaks down into water and carbon dioxide gas. So in the jar, I have like some form of water, and then outside of the jar, all of that foam, that was the carbon dioxide gas. So we also see carbon dioxide in soda, right? All the little bubbles in our soda, those are like carbon dioxide bubbles, or carbon dioxide gas. And just like how in our drinks we have these bubbles, those same bubbles is what made the jar overflow. So all of that foam and all of those bubbles that we saw, that is the carbon dioxide gas. And the carbon dioxide gas rose to the top of the jar. Now my jar is kind of sinking because most of the gas has already left the jar. But when the reaction first happened, all of that carbon dioxide gas that was formed rose to the top of the jar and then it just exploded over top. And the reason that we added liquid dish soap is because dish soap makes this activity very foamy. So it makes it almost like look bigger. Just like how dish soap, when you wash your hands, it makes all those little bubbles. The dish soap did the same thing in our activity. It made our explosion very foamy and it made it look larger. And so the dish soap is what makes our lava foamy. And that is how we made our baking soda volcano. So does anyone have any questions, or does anyone want to show us their volcano?
I dumped mine out already, but if you saw it earlier, pretty high, but then I added a teaspoon more after it like went down, and it came back up again.
Oh, wow. So you added more baking soda and the reaction happened all over again?
Not much, because I only added a teaspoon.
That's still super cool that you were able to add more baking soda and then it still like reacted again. Awesome. Anyone else want to share how their volcano works or anything cool about it?
My volcano, when I put more vinegar in, exploded even further and went higher.
When you added more vinegar?
Yes, I added more vinegar. Then
I think you're a little bit frozen, but that sounds super awesome that you're able to add more vinegar.
foamed a little bit.
Anyone else want to share while we finish up?
I do. Mine is a volcano and it spread everywhere on my
Baking sheet.
baking sheet and it was a big explosion. It didn't go sky, but just went like zoom, like falling everywhere.
That sounds awesome. And I'm glad you had a baking sheet too, that way it wasn't all over your table and your floor.
Well, we did it outside, so it didn't really go out to everywhere on my table.
Awesome. Yeah, that's smart. Do it where you don't have to worry about big messes. So just a moment ago, I put a link in the chat. So like I said before, today is our last day of Got Science and our weekly science activities, but it does not have to be the last day of science activities and experiments. So starting next week and going through about Thanksgiving, I'm going to be leading still weekly science activities and lessons that are also be virtual, probably using Zoom. So for the parents or for the adults, I put the link to the flyer and then also where you can find me and my business on Facebook at Cool Kids Science RVA. That way, if you guys or if your student is interested in still doing more science, there's the registration link. And then also I have the flyer posted on Facebook as well, so you can go check that out. Does anyone have any more questions or comments? Today's our last day.
You missed a previous lesson and you want to watch, I put the link to the YouTube videos in there and they're also on our Facebook page, so you can feel free to watch them there. And her information for the Cool Kids Science will be posted in the event today.
Get back to the table.
Nope.
So I'm glad that I had this opportunity, and then all of this